Thank you, everybody. Today we're delighted to have the talented local artist Yuen with us. Thank you, Chin, for accepting our invitation to do the Zoom Artist Talk. Yuen was born in Malaysia. She studied in Singapore and England before moving to Canada for further education. She earned a BFA with honors from the Carr University of Art and Design and a Master of Arts from the University of Victoria. Yuen has traveled extensively throughout her life. Her diverse experiences while abroad have given her an artistic edge. Her time spent traveling, combined with her dedication to creating new and exciting works, allows her to create her dynamic abstract paintings. Yuen's artistic process reflects both the joy she experiences while creating art, as well as her introspective problem solving. Her works have been featured in exhibitions around the world, as well as in private residences, hotels, and corporate buildings. We are thrilled to be displaying a collection of Yuen's vibrant and engaging works at Manchester Galleries until May 12th. Thank you very much for listening. I'll now turn things over to Chin to begin her talk. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Anahita, for the introduction and for giving me the opportunity to exhibit at your prestigious gallery. So I'm speaking to you from my studio, giving you a little bit of a look. All right, and I will start my slideshow. Anahita, you'll have to enable my sharing.
Sorry, Chin, I think now you can share your screen.
Wonderful.
Hi, Chin. It's Val.
Hi, Val. So, there are two parts to my presentation. First, I will show you my paintings from the show, including the fabulous gallery installation. During the slideshow, I will read my artist statement, which will give you an introduction to the body of work and the context in which these paintings were created. Second, I will offer insights to 9 paintings, sharing their backstories and how they were developed. And we will end with a Q&A. I see my paintings as windows to fantastical abstract landscapes that celebrate beauty and colors. The creative process nurtures my playful imagination, and the resulting paintings with their vibrant colors lift me up. They transport me to places of rejuvenation and happiness, which turn out to be absolutely necessary in 2020 and now in 2021. The journey to spiritual nourishment, however, is not a solo act. The pandemic has made my life simpler and more introspective. I cherish my studio hours and paint prolifically. Unfortunately, both my beloved mother and mother-in-law passed away in 2020. A year with compounded world tragedies and personal pains, my art studio was a valuable refuge. My colorful imaginary landscapes were lifesavers that offered me respite and hope. My need for restoration, however, is shared by others. The pandemic shows an increase in art sales, demonstrating how in times of troubles, people seek out the healing powers of art. I received supportive responses from my patrons and friends, who thanked me for creating paintings that invigorated and elevated their spirits. Their encouraging words, in turn, motivate and cheer me on. I recognize the importance and preciousness of life through the glaring loss we experience personally and globally. I'm propelled more than ever to celebrate life by painting inspiring spaces where others and I could enjoy and find joy, relief, and regeneration. Here's the beautiful Winchester Gallery. The exhibition Dynamic Reflections features the painting of Ruby Hugh and me, two contemporary Canadian abstract painters. Ruby Hugh will be sharing her paintings and concepts in her artist talk on May 8th. Please enjoy the slides, and I will speak again when we arrive at the second segment. All paintings have stories. In this segment, I will feature 9 paintings, offering you the background, including how they were created. You might have noticed verdant pages stands out amongst the rest. In the last 3 years, I created a body of works that is divided into 2 groups, line and texture. The paintings in this show demonstrate my expressions in lines. Verdant pages, on the other hand, showcases my adventures with textures. To create texture on this painting, I use molding and crackling paste on stretched canvas. I stain it with a variety of greens, and at this point it is highly textured and stained, but without a real composition. Next, I introduce some light and darkness in order to pull out shapes. The right image shows micaceous iron oxide, a natural mineral that sparkles under certain lighting and offers a sandpaper texture. Images of paper started to surface as I intensified the contrast between light and dark. The final result is verdant pages. Now moving on to lines, Farewell to Stevenson pays tribute to the Canadian Stevenson Paint Company that closed shop around late 2018. When I was a student at Carr College of Art and Design, I used solely Stevenson paints. Although I primarily use golden artist colors now, I still have a few tubes of Stevenson. It's rather sad that the company's gone. It feels like an era has ended. The painting developed from a typical colorful underpainting. I work mostly with my paintings on a table, or 2, depending on the size of the painting, but I would put the painting on the easel for assessment and better viewing. So back and forth it goes. My intention was to create a joyful abstract landscape, wishing the Stevensons a happy retirement. I chose to feature spring here because every year I would create at least one spring-themed painting during the winter. It is always good to be hopeful during miserable weather. This was my 2020 escape. As you can see, I have a rich underpainting here. Sometimes it's hard to paint over a beautiful stain. I choose translucent paints in this case so that the colors and light from the underpainting will show through the subsequent layers. Here's a typical thing I do as I develop my paintings. I rotate them and find new ways of seeing them. With round paintings, that's 360 degrees of possibilities. Pretty overwhelming. Peaceful Ascent was created when the pandemic was in full swing last year. There was so much turmoil and uncertainties. I saw this painting as a window or portal to another dimension, an uphill landscape where we could ascend steadily and arrive at a peaceful destination. The concept for a painting seldom comes while I'm working on the underpainting. The underpainting is often created casually by applying paints on the canvas with big brushes a few days before I start a new painting. In this case, the underpainting was too exciting and vibrant for my intent. I needed to tone it down if I was to convey the feeling of peace. The application of light ultramarine and light phthalo blue smooths the intensity and brings a soothing feeling to the painting. Choosing the right colors is key in my process. Come Together was created shortly after George Floyd was murdered. My spirit was low, strongly affected by the terrible news of police brutality and the loss of innocent Black lives. I had begun a diptych, and progress was slow. I pushed myself to stop thinking and keep painting. I created bold, colorful shapes on top of a lively background of blues. I pressed on and finally had a eureka moment when I saw the significance of a diptych. Diptychs are created by combining two panels that work as a whole, separate but yet united. I saw the title Come Together. From then on, the shapes became people as represented by different colors, sizes, and characteristics. They grew in number. Come Together is about joining force in solidarity, a vibrant collective standing together to support Black Lives Matter. When I started painting, I often asked myself what kind of mood I would like to channel. For this painting, I wanted something light and weightless. Once the foundation was down, I created shapes with tapework. With a silicone wedge, I scratched through wet paint to make interesting texture and patterns. To achieve a sense of movement and flow, I had long, sinuous ribbons travel across the canvas. While working on the painting, I imagined myself swimming through a forest of colorful kelp. Some see party streamers. I'm sure everyone sees something different based on their backgrounds. And as a swimmer, I naturally kind of see swimming, the feeling of being weightless in water. I was desperately waiting for something wonderful to happen in 2020 so that I would have a good reason to share this painting. Joe Biden won the US election and I posted celebration on Facebook. The first version of Celebration was created in 2016. See if you can detect clothing patterns on the bottom. Here, clothing patterns of actually, I believe it's a vest. And also up here in this column here. I image transferred the patterns onto the canvas to create visual interest. Although I love certain elements of the painting, I was never satisfied with it. So when 2020 came around, I decided to revise it. I introduced more vertical elements, creating an upward flow, always aiming to keep the spirit of a celebration. Fine-tuning details with a fine brush. I enjoy recycling paintings because the results are always rewarding. The more layers I build, the more visual intrigues I yield. You still can spot tiny details of the clothing patterns, a button here, a seam there, if you look closely. This painting is a feast to the eyes, a real celebration. My mother passed away from a stroke in late November 2020. For the first time, I struggled to paint, but not for long. painting once again offered a way to move forward. My first painting was called The Great Calm, a tribute to my mom, wishing her peace and comfort after a life of illnesses. That painting is currently at the Art Exchange Gallery in Seattle. The next painting I did was Escape to Zero Gravity. How did the painting begin? I was invited to show at the Rockslide Gallery in urban Old Town, just a block away from where my mom used to live. The display windows are large, fronting the street. Since my paintings would be displayed in February, the coldest month in Victoria, I wanted them to be large and eye-catching, stopping people in their tracks with their vibrant colors and vitality, the opposite of winter blues and hibernation. As the shapes begin to form, I see a ring emerging in the middle. I decide to run with the ring by creating a composition that supports a central focal point without being static or overpowering. The diagonal blue lines stream across both canvases, creating a cohesive movement that goes from one panel to the next. However, not all shapes and spaces connect across the two panels. I wanted the visual interruption to inspire curiosity and a sense of the unknown. As I see it, when you escape to zero gravity, anything can happen. I feel that the time I no longer spend with my mom should be used constructively and meaningfully, and I do so by creating. The old cliché, life is for the living, seems to make more sense now. This painting is created in the spirit of moving courageously forward to welcome new experiences. My final feature is When Anything is Possible. Painting large is very exciting for me because I truly feel that I could do anything, hence the title. First, the staining of my large playground. I instinctively wanted to ground the painting, so I built the painting from bottom up with shapes that I sometimes refer to as islands. The painting develops with alternating horizontal and vertical movements, quickly turning the painting into a landscape. At this stage, I started to choose colors that pop to bring more life and contrast. The painting is alive with movements, and so was I, moving the painting from easel to the tables and back again. Basically, big paintings are a workout. When Anything is Possible not only pertains to the creative process, but also the viewer's interpretation. I'm always delighted to hear what people see in or even hear from my paintings. This concludes my presentation, and I hope you've enjoyed the slideshow, and I welcome your questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jen. It was
you.
amazing. I believe everybody enjoyed it. So please type your questions in the group chat. If you have any questions, if you like to turn your audio on or video on and ask your questions, that's also possible. Okay. So maybe I wait for a few seconds for a question to come up.
All right.
And then I will move on to my questions.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Could I ask a quick question? Hi. Finally. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation and the each behind the scene, and then it's quite. I really enjoyed it. You mentioned the circle of canvas you rotated 360 degree when you walk on. And I just wonder how you do the same with a square or rectangular.
Yes, I do.
And yes, and then when you're walking on like keep rotating, and then you end up deciding the changing which side is going to be top from the beginning.
Yes, so my paintings develop very organically. Sometimes, like I said, especially during 2020, I just throw myself into a blank canvas, just start, just move, just paint. And so while that is developing, my ideas are developing too. And sometimes when I start settling into, for example, a side that I feel that I really enjoy, and just for the change of it, just for refreshing my eyes, I would spin it. It doesn't matter what size it is. It could be a rectangular, it could be square or round. I do that. And as an exercise, it actually allows you to see different things. And sometimes the painting would go differently because once I rotate it, I actually love what I see in the other dimension. And then I would go with it. And there are even times where it returned back to the original orientation. And I think it's important to be open-minded, and I definitely stay open-minded when I'm painting, to allow the painting to lead me to different places. And I think with you are an artist, and I know a lot of artists have times when you, at a stage of your painting, you do have to sit back and take a break and sort of reevaluate what is it, are you actually achieving what you want, and if it's going the way you want it to go. And those moments, I think, are very important because we're actually in a stage of analysis and reflection. And so I find that with the painting, I do constantly move through that stage. And even after when the painting is finished, for example, if you look behind Anahita, can everyone see Anahita? Yes, that painting is called Flexible because that painting ended with brilliant 4 sides to me. I find that I can have it on all 4 sides and they look wonderful to me. And they express what I want to say. And hence the title Flexible, because not only the shapes are bending here and there, they're very flexible. The painting itself can rotate. Does that answer your question, Eiko?
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was a great question. So I'm just going to go through the questions from the group chat one by one. The first question is from Diane. She'd like to know more about the lines you make within the larger shapes that engage with the next shape.
All right. Does she mean the lines, for example, with Flexible, the lines within the shapes?
Yes, I think so. The patterns and the lines within the larger shapes.
All right. Great painting to have behind you. So yes, the lines within the shapes are created by scraping. For example, one of the picture I showed, I have a wedge, a silicone wedge. But when I teach, I actually tell my students, you don't have to buy wedges. You can easily use a fork, and you can easily go to the hardware store and get tools from the, I think it is the grouting, tiling, grouting, painting department. There are scrapers that have many lines, shapes, teeth. So those teeth, when your paint is wet, you scratch through them, you create lines. So that would be the lines within the shapes. And the shapes themselves are created by using tape. So depending on how you use your tape, you can actually bend it, you can actually create different shapes and forms. Did I answer the question? Is there another part to it?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So the next question is, although I understand you have a concept in mind when you start, do you also have a definite idea of the final result, or is it intuitive?
All right. So I think the first answer I had, I already expressed the fact that I allow my ideas to evolve, and sometimes I don't even have an idea yet before I start a painting, because I think it's important to move. And so, and I do allow my concepts to change. For example, if I move the painting to a certain deep angle, I actually prefer it, I would run with it. And that might change the concept. And I'm okay with that, with no problem with that. And I think a lot of times painting is very intuitive. I kind of liken it to jazz music. When you're at a section of improvisation, it is so freeing, but you do still have a framework that you have to improvise within. But at the same time, it is freeing to sort of run with it, run with your ideas or your imagination. So it is very intuitive.
That's fantastic. So it can be flexible, but you still have a plan.
Yes, and sometimes I do, for example, so far I've been talking about just starting, but there are times when I do have a concept before I start, and I would follow it through to a certain degree, and then, like I said, I would sit back and think about, do I enjoy this? Do I actually want to continue with this? Or do I want to change it up so that I'm actually exploring different things?
Wonderful, thank you. I think Christine would like to ask her question, so I will give her access to turn on her video and ask her question. Thank you. Would you please unmute yourself? There we go.
Actually, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to say
Hello! Oh, wonderful.
we've been to the gallery this afternoon and now we're listening with great interest to your talk. So
Thank you.
it's been so long.
Wonderful. Thank you for the positive energy. Fantastic. Okay. Oh, I don't want to miss any questions. There we go. Okay. Sorry, just a second. I need to. Oh, would you please turn your video off so we can turn it? Yeah, so we can focus on the next question. The next question, it's not a question, it's a comment. Unfortunately, I can't see their name, but they say that, Chin, thank you so much. Your work is such a gift. It is so inspiring, creative, and heartfelt. Thank you so much for having an accessible, wonderful Zoom session. Well, thank you so much for the feedback. It's amazing to hear from everybody. The next question, how many paintings do you work on in the studio, or is it just start to finish on each painting? Do you work on different paintings at the same time, or do you paint one piece, finish it, and then move on to the next?
It depends. Mostly I do start a few paintings at the same time, and they're usually the same shape, same size. However, with the big one that you can see at the back there, and also the big ones that you saw in the show, for example, Anything Can Happen and Escape to Zero Gravity, those ones are large and they are all-consuming. So I do stick with those paintings and move through, process them as I go. However, when it comes to smaller sizes, I do start a few at the same time because I like to move, giving yourself breaks from one painting to another so that you can see and revisit the painting with sort of a clearer mind or a newer mindset, newer, basically refreshed perspective. So I do enjoy that. And also, when you're creating a series, it's also nice to kind of dwell on a few different paintings at the same time, so that you allow the concept or the ideas to sort of move into different directions too.
Thank you. Yeah. The next question is asking, there was a moment in your artist's life when you went from being a realistic painter to an abstract painter, and if so, what was your aha moment? What happened? What made this transition?
Yes, very good question. I drew ever since I was a kid, so I would say pre-kindergarten. I drew a lot, and my obsession was humans. I love humans. I love being able to express the different angles of their faces, their movement, and also the rendering of the face. When I teach figurative drawing or painting, I would tell my students, when you are looking at a face and when you're painting them, when you are using a brush or pencil, it's almost like you're caressing the person. You are actually moving your tools so that you actually can feel the shape or the movement, the curves of a face and a body. And I love all those aspects, and I love to tell stories with humans. And the change came about, I would say, I think it was about 18, 19 years ago, where I felt that a little bit stagnated. I felt that I need to change things up. There is a certain control. After you've done something for so many years, there's a certain control that you're very comfortable with. You know when to stop, you know how things are done. And I did not want to have that control. I wanted to throw myself into sort of a different arena where in some ways I start anew without that sense of, aha, I know exactly how this is going to go, this, and it's going to end. So with abstraction, it is so exciting. You have a blank canvas, and where do you start? I think a lot of people have that question. And for me, that is exciting. That kind of challenges is something that I seek throughout my life, that I feel that if you have arrived at a place 100 times, it's probably best to move on. And even with abstract paintings, there are times where I arrive at a painting where I feel like, well, this is it, it's finished, it's balanced, it's beautiful, I like it. The next day I come back and I'm like, no, it's boring. I've been here many, many times. Let's move on. So the same thing, for example, when I talked about Celebration, it was finished, it was in galleries, but still, 3 years later, when I looked at it again, I was at 4 years, 4 years later, and I thought, no, it never finished where I felt really proud of it, really happy with it. So I brought it further, and now the version of Celebration I truly love.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, thank you. Oh, hi, Ruby.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, nice to see you guys with the face.
Hi, Ruby.
I actually have a question from a abstract painter to another. Like, how do you decide on colors and textures when you're painting? Because for my method, I always plan ahead. Like, I know what color I want on a canvas. I know where they go, like where the shapes go. Just curious about yours.
All right. I have strong feelings for colors. And so if I'm thinking of a certain mood that I would like to convey, I would think about how that color would convey my feelings. And so my choice of colors, as I mentioned with the peaceful ascent, for example, the underpainting was really lively and vibrant. So what I needed to do was if I want to think about peacefulness, what colors would convey that feeling. So I would choose specific colors to express myself. And as I mentioned before, I do go with the flow. And so if something doesn't work as expected, I would change it. I would go, okay, so that color didn't work, and I would try and experiment it. And I love experimenting because I have people who come to me and look at my paintings and say, I would never think that these two colors will work together or they will look good, but they do on your paintings. And that's because I like to explore. I don't think about color theory. I don't think about sort of the rules surrounding colors. I go with what I intuitively feel about colors. So sometimes you don't see me going, oh, the magenta or the like big words for painting. I'll go, I'm going for the happy yellow, or I'm going for the sleepy blue. That's how I feel. And so to me, it's intuitive, and it's intuitive. Does that answer your question, Ruby?
Yeah, totally. And I think the way you explained it sort of also convey a feeling that you are changing the preconceived notion of what certain color give people feeling. Like you can
Yes.
turn a very calming blue into a very vibrant and like very lively kind of
Yes,
color. I
yes,
found it
that's
very,
right.
very beautiful.
Thank you, Ruby.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to your talk.
thank you. I'm excited about that too.
Yes, you're excited for that. Awesome. Regarding to that conversation, it's actually one of my questions that I really want to know, because looking at your works, it feels like there are so many layers into your work, and you can work on a piece forever and add in something to it. It's really hard to say when the work is done. I feel like if I was creating an art like that, it would be really hard for me to decide when the piece is finished and it's ready to display. Would you please explain how you decide that what the feeling is when you feel the work is finished and it's done?
Mm-hmm. Again, it's intuitive, and it also involves I think when you're painting, especially near the end, it's a very analytical moment. It's troubleshooting. It's I also refer to puzzle making or solving a puzzle. So to me, balance is a very important thing. When I look at a painting, do I feel balanced when I look at this? Do I feel a sense of completion through the balance? I think a lot of paintings can go on forever and ever. I mean, when does a painting end? It can go on forever, but it has to be what you feel comfortable with. For me, it's very intuitive, and I think I'm repeating myself again. Balance is key to me. If I feel balanced, if I feel that I'm comfortable in this space, this painting, that's when I will end the painting. And sometimes it's very hard to decide. I sometimes have to leave the painting for a few days and go back to look at it. And when I return to it, it feels finished. Then I go, okay, I'm gonna let it go and let it stay. However, again, returning to celebration, I ended the painting where I felt that I was at peace with it. However, several years later, I looked at it again and I felt it was incomplete to me. And so I moved it further. So I think it's very, very personal. For example, what I find balanced is probably not balanced at all for somebody else. So again, it's, to me, painting is really a personal process, and it's up to you to decide. If you watch the documentary of Gerhard Richter, when he paints, it was hilarious. I was so frustrated when I was watching that documentary. I would go like, stop it, stop, your painting is gorgeous, stop it. And he goes again and scrape it all off and do something completely different. So when I'm painting, I've noticed that at certain stages, people will go, no, don't, just stop, just, this is great. And it reminded me of, how I felt when I watched Gerhard Richter paint. And that's because I think it is a personal process, a personal progress. And if you have arrived to somewhere before, you want to move on, and that journey is yours alone. And nobody can tell you stop or, this is perfect, this is beautiful. But maybe we don't want perfect, maybe we don't want beautiful. We want the process to continue so that we can arrive at a place that's new.
Oh, wonderful. Such a great answer. Thank you. So if I hope I haven't missed any questions. It's really hard to follow up with the questions in the group chat. If I have missed any, please let me know. But I will go through my questions. First of all, the question that everybody would like to know is that where do you find your inspiration for your works, and which artists have influenced your work throughout your whole career?
Well, that question will take 20 minutes. So I was just started as a child. I think that our influences start from our childhood. I was exposed to Japanese manga, and the Japanese cartoons are powerful. They make you feel like you're watching a movie. You know, the perspective, the drama of just a simple vignette is incredible. So I would copy, I would diligently try to emulate the drawings. How do I draw a human? By copying cartoons. And then I was also drawn to Walt Disney movies because the colors are so beautiful, so softly applied, and the way movements are conveyed. So as a kid, I did a lot of copying, trying to learn from cartoons, from movies, and then later on in high school, I was introduced to art history. And of course, in those days, my exposure was mostly to male artists. And so artists like Matisse, I just love because of the colors, the simplicity of the compositions. And then I was also fascinated by Cubism, the way that space are not what you think, or what not the space is being deconstructed so that you can actually see different dimensions of a subject. And the breaking of space, the deconstructivism of it was so exciting for me. And when my teachers, my high school teacher had us do exercises of Cubism, it was daunting, but at the same time, I found it very intriguing. So I think you still can see my interest in Cubism in my paintings now, because the fragmentation of space, for example, the diptych of Escape to Zero Gravity, you see the two panels, they don't link in certain areas, and that fragmentation, that distortion of space, to me is very exciting. So going back to the masters, I was also drawn to Max Bachmann, the German painter who had very violent strokes, strong, bold black lines. And these black lines remind me of Japanese manga because they have very distinctive, strong black lines. And the emotions in his application was very exciting for me. It was very raw. And so from there, I moved into Emily Carr, went to Emily Carr. And from Emily Carr, I realized there were so many amazing female artists practicing, and a lot of them were using the self as a subject. And a lot of them came from, were feminists. And so the personal is political was a powerful slogan for me. The Emily Carr, Simon Fraser University, and Vancouver Art Gallery had organized a project with Sonia Boyce, a British artist, and they invited some students to work with Sonia Boyce, and the end result would be an art exhibition at the Vancouver Art Gallery. I was very fortunate to be chosen, and with the democratic process, Sonia Boyce suggested that each student write a word and put it in a basket, and that word is a word that they're interested in exploring. And the word that came out was family, and that was the last subject I wanted to work on, because having lived without my parents since I was 6, I did not have a traditional family to portray, and also having lived abroad in different countries, my experience was so different from what I think is a traditional family. However, I was stuck. I had to work on the subject, and the subject brought out a lot of hidden issues, or things that I have never really addressed in my life. And also by then, let's see. But the process was very, very powerful. The fact that you have to dig deep to express yourself, that was a first time for me. And so the end result was powerful. The exhibition was wonderful. I realized that the self is full of resources. And from there, I would say that from that experience, I was very inspired to talk about the experiences that I had. And by then I had studied in England, and the racism was rampant there. And so the subject during my Emily Carr years were my expression about racism and about sexism and about issues of where do I belong, especially family, home. These are concepts that are different from me. So these digging deep to express myself were important process. However, it really drained me. It was inspiring for the mind for me personally to develop as a person. However, as an artist, I felt really, really drained. And so when I graduated, I moved to Victoria to be with my mom. And in order to get my college degree into a Bachelor of Fine Arts, I had to take 1 year of courses. And that year was fantastic because from my English courses, I was introduced to amazing writers. And once again, a lot of them were female writers that spoke to me, that I understood, and I felt that, wow, this is really quite a revelation. And it also dovetailed to my exposure to the female artists. And the other thing was my English sucked by that time. I did not read much. I had really problems. I struggled with English. But that introduction to literature and essay writing, I realized that the written word, the writing and talking about issues that I was concerned about was so, I would say, it was way more effective than if I tried to paint these subjects. So for 7 years, I didn't paint. And another reason why I didn't paint for 7 years was because I was robbed. When I moved from Vancouver to Victoria, the van that was carrying all my life belongings was broken into. So my notes, my paintings, my art supplies, my clothing, everything were stolen except for a few paintings, and which were behind the washing machine, which I didn't get to. So for that 7 years, I wrote essays. I explored the issues that I started when I was in Emily Carr, and I felt that the written word was so much more powerful for me, that I was able to express myself more succinctly in writing. But I knew something was missing. But I kept on going with my English, and I actually ended up doing my master's in English literature and theory. And my master degree was my thesis examined the languages we use in books and in catalogs of a museum, and also the movie language, and also visual language, how we use language to portray others, how we use language to create a hierarchy or maintain a hierarchy where some benefit from the hierarchy and some are oppressed. And so having done that, I felt something was missing, because my first love is art. And but how do I return to art? Because the last time I was creating, they were sort of political art, and that didn't benefit me in the way that it did not feed me. It actually drained me instead. So I am really grateful for having gone through that 7 years of studying, of expressing myself through the written language, because now I perhaps can return to fine arts, to visual arts. And when I did, I evaluated how I felt about art. What was it that made art so special for me ever since I was a kid? And I realized it was about joy, about expressing what I love about life. And for example, Matisse came to mind. Matisse painting is about the joy of life. Sometimes it's about the simplicity of life. And I realized that if I relegate the heavy issues to writing and the celebration of life with painting, I've got a great solution. And so I returned to painting. And the first series I did was a celebration of life, of things that I love. And so I created portraits of my mom, my husband, and jazz musicians that I admire, and my friends, paintings of my friends and family. So when you ask me a question, what influenced me? So a lot of things influenced me, and I think it goes all the way back, and it's not just what is readily available now. I think there is a history of built up, because without the education I had, without all the essays I wrote, I would not be the person that I am now, painting and creating these works. So the influences are many, and it could be physical things like the decayed paint on a boat, or a dress that Bottega Veneta design, and or a color combination on a pair of shoes that I absolutely love. So it's many layers of influences.
Oh, it's fascinating to know what the experiences and challenges the artists went throughout their life. And thank you for sharing that with us. It's mind-blowing to know all the challenges, all the 7 years you didn't paint. It's definitely mind-blowing and inspiring, I think. So thank you. I just want to wrap up the talk with my final question, which is, where do you see the future of your art? Are you going to explore other styles? Do you want to take a different approach? Do you have a plan for the future?
Well, I'll definitely be painting all my life. There's no retirement for me. I think, as you can see with the trajectory of my career, things change, and I am open to exploring different things. Just as, for example, the last 3 years I've been creating the two veins of artwork, the texture and lines, and I'm always yearning or looking for new ways of expressing myself. And I think it's important to embrace different ways of creating or expressing yourself. Curiosity is very important. So I'll be painting, and where it will lead me, I'm not sure. I think it's an exciting process. Who knows, humans might come back. Never know.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone here for joining us, for taking the time from your Saturday afternoon and joining us in this artist talk session with Chin. Thank you, Chin, for preparing this fabulous presentation for us. I believe everyone enjoyed it, enjoyed listening to you and looking at your works. And I believe we have a better understanding of your process of art making. The exhibition Dynamic Reflections will be on display until Wednesday, May 12th As you know, this exhibition is a curated selection of works by two artists, Yuen and Hu. We will have a Zoom artist talk with Ruby on Saturday, May 8th at 3 p.m. So please join us to see the other half of this exhibition. The gallery is open from Tuesday to Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Please drop by to see Chin and Ruby's works in person. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Goodbye, Chin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.